162 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Kristen.
And Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all of the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So this week, we're reading One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig.
Yes.
We kind of talked about it a tiny bit 2 weeks ago.
We did?
Yeah. Because I was telling you that I finished the first book and I didn't think that you should read it until,
yes.
until I finished the second one.
Right. What am I going to do this month? Because oh, dear God.
You're going to have to read the second one immediately.
That's true. I'll have the time. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess this is a pretty popular Bookstagram book talk book duology series. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talking about it just because it's like, it's in a lot of those videos that's like, are you looking for a completed series or a series that's not super long?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of thing. And I'm kind of sad that it's only 2 books. Like, I love that it all, like, wrapped up, everything's great, but I really like the world, and I like the
magic system?
Yeah. So, I kind of wish there was a bit more. But, anyway, so we're doing One Dark Window. I think we've both seen it kicking around, but my friend sent it to me for my birthday, and then she was messaging me, like, did you read it yet? Did you read it yet? And I was like, no. And then I finally did. And I read both of them in like a week or something because I couldn't put them down. So yeah, and this is like one of maybe 2 times ever that you're doing a book that you haven't read yet.
I know, because I like to know what happens before we get into it because I know not to then either. I know how to react.
And it's easier to know foreshadowing. I think it'd be hard if neither of us had read a book, which I don't.
We also have done that.
We did that with the X-Hex.
Yes.
But I don't know if we did it with any other books.
Didn't we do it with Solitaire?
I had read it before.
Oh.
But,
yeah. Oh, okay.
I thought you had read it before, too.
Yeah, maybe I did.
We were gonna do it with Fourth Wing, and then we both just couldn't. And then we read it a second time for...
Oh, I know, but it's also hard because we've read so many books at this point. I'm just like, what have we read?
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, you have it all listed, what we've done.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So we can look.
Right there.
So no, 2022 was a wash. We both read most, if not all of them. 2023, Neon Gods?
I had read it before.
Okay, so no.
Because I read Neon Gods before, and you read A Touch of Darkness before.
Right.
And then we picked both of them because they were...
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so Serpent to the Wings of Night, I read. Divine Rivals?
Oh, that might have been one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
So, looks like we're the worst.
Not the worst.
Anyway, yeah, so I have actually had this book on my shelf forever, for such a long time. And I've been meaning to pick it up, but I just haven't. Like, it's been, just one of those books on your TBR that you keep wanting to get, and you just keep reaching for something else. Like, something else comes out, and you're like, well, I have to get that. So, like, it just keeps jumping the place. Like, you know what I mean? It keeps falling down in the line. So, I'm excited to get the opportunity to read it this month.
Yeah, it's really good. I like it a lot.
Yes. I like that we're finding these books, like, obviously they're popular for a reason, right? Like, everyone raves about them, so they're gonna be good. But I just really like, it seems like 2025 is our year of discovery, right?
Sure.
Okay, fine.
Sorry.
Fine?
And I just in what way?
Maybe it won't be our year of discovery.
And, like, you mean, like, Quicksilver and
this
one,
book. And, you know,
okay.
what we have planned for later.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I'm just in that way.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Sorry, I just was like, what?
Because, again, like, I feel like up to this point we've done a lot of everything is a series, but like a lot of our comfort reads, right? Like a lot of SJM, like, you know, a lot of like we did Bitten, we did like just books that we enjoy and have enjoyed across our life. But like I feel like we're finally getting into the new stuff.
Yeah. Things that are actually like that either came out recently or series that are ongoing, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I get what you're saying now.
Year of Discovery!
Year of Discovery. You are correct.
But yeah, I'm really excited that I'm finally getting to read something that's been sitting on my shelf for well over a year.
Do you have the second book?
No.
That's a terrible plan.
Well, I mean, I'll be at the bookstore at some point in the next week or two because I have a child who reads, so I'm sure I'll get there.
I just order everything because I'm the worst, but, you know, sometimes you just have to.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess we'll get into it. So, just a heads up. It's not a spoiler-free zone, but there probably won't be any spoilers for like anything past week 1 because I don't think you've read that far yet.
I have not.
And things might get saucy, but they're not going to get sexy. We'll probably swear a bit though because that's what we do. But there won't be any sexy bits, I don't think, this week.
Not even in this book?
There's a bit in this book. Sorry. I was trying to remember because I read them. I may as well have read them as one book because I don't know like where one ends and the next one begins. But there's a bit of spice in this one. Okay. There's not a lot of spice, but there's just a bit of spice.
Okay.
Okay, so we're doing One Dark Window, like we said. We're doing chapters 1 to 9. And Rachel Gillig is a fantasy author, and One Dark Window is the first book in the Shepherd King duology. And it is a gothic fantasy book, and it doesn't have a ton of spice, kind of like some of our other stuff, but it does still have a bit. And I think this is her first, I think this was the first book she ever released, which is something. And she actually has a new duology that is set to release May 20th, so in 2 months. And the first book is called The Night and the Moth. And then there's another book listed as Bad Luck Would Have It, and it's coming out at some point, but it didn't say when, so I don't really know. But anyway, so it seems like she's got a lot of books coming out, so I think I'll definitely give them a try after reading these two.
Yeah, I need to wait and see
how you feel.
Yeah, see how I feel.
Yeah. So starting off the book, each chapter kind of has like a little card thing that explains something before it starts. Some of them are important and some of them are less important. But yeah, it's kind of similar to like Fourth Wing in that there's just little tidbits at the beginning.
So here's my issue is I don't know. So obviously you guys don't have an insight into what I text Catherine. I literally had to text her and be like, do I need to include this in notes? Because just the way it came up, I was like, is this important? Yes or no? I didn't know if it was important. So, like, I'm struggling because now I've definitely left stuff out that is probably important. So you're gonna have to fill those in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if I see anything. And then, but the thing, too, is, like, when you see things happening later, you might be like, oh, that happened, and I didn't realize it was important kind of thing. But
yeah.
We'll figure it out. But I just found, like, the things at the front of the chapters, they're kind of more for helping teach us the magic system. Because that's the thing with a fantasy book. Like, they have these elaborate systems of magic, and then you're trying to learn them, but also trying to follow a story, and it's like, what am I doing?
I'm not gonna lie. So, like, Catherine, she did the first half of our chapters this week, and I did the second half, and I could not explain to you what happened in your section. I still don't know.
So, generally, if I haven't read a book, I will give you the first part of it so that I can wrap my head around it. And, like, this one, I knew you didn't read it, so I gave myself the first part of it because I knew you wouldn't be able to wrap your head around it. So, like, it's only fair.
Yeah.
Quicksilver, you started because I was like, what the fuck is going on? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a thing. That's an insight into how we do things here. It's an insight to Kristen.
I was not aware of this.
So yeah, I guess we'll get into it. So the first chapter starts and it says, the infection comes as a fever in the night and takes hold by turning veins black. So we get the main character is 9 when the physicians come. And she's, like, sleeping on a windowsill, and her aunt just, like, opens the window and pushes her out. And I was like, what the fuck am I reading the first time?
It's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah. And she's just like, go to the woods. And as she falls out, she hits her head. And the voice in her head tells her to get up and calls her Elspeth. I think that's how you say it. That's how I'm going with it.
Yeah, it's a weird name.
Yeah.
It sort of has Elphaba vibes.
Yeah. So she runs to the mist and she thinks like she doesn't have her charm, which is a big deal, but we don't know why. And then she just is like, she can't make it. And she thinks, help me. And she hears steps in her mind and her arms are like painful and turning black. And like, I'm pretty sure... So this part kind of confuses me a bit. I'm pretty sure her veins are black all the time. But when she talks about her veins when there's magic, I think it's like they're like bubbling and like you can see the black like running up and down. That's what I took it as, but I could be wrong. So that's what I'm taking it as here. But she wakes up in the woods under an alder tree, and her hands are bloody and her nails are broken, and the nightmare in her head with yellow eyes doesn't tell her how he did it, but it's the first time she thinks that she's not afraid of him because she's like, he saved her somehow. He got her out of here. Because she like basically fainted and was like, I can't make it to the woods. And the nightmare got her there. Which is part of the like, when you're first reading a book, part of the like, what the hell is going on?
Like you get sort of the, okay, obviously like they're trying to hide her from the cops.
Yeah, the physicians.
Whoever.
But, yeah. The bad guys.
But, like, this whole weird voice in the head and, like, her passing out and yet still showing up under the tree is, like, oh, okay.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we just time jump 11 years. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with her being 20.
Yeah.
It's better than being a teenager. I could use her a bit older, but, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. So she's on her way to meet her cousin, Ione?
We'll say that. It's either...
Sure.
It could be Ione, it could be Ione, like...
Yeah. Not sure.
Not sure. In my head, though, for some reason, because it's Ione, so in my head, when I'm reading it, I just call her Ione.
Oh, yeah.
But
it could be.
It's definitely not.
It's funny because when it's written, it actually looks kind of like a lowercase L, and you're like,
yes.
low.
Yeah.
So that's probably, yeah. So she's going to meet her cousin in town. The town is Blunder. And she's walking down the path, and she's, like, humming one of his songs. And she ends up, like, stepping off the path and eats some berries, and then also some ants. And I'm like, why is this?
Yeah, I don't understand why it's relevant. She's like, oh, like, the ants are, like, running all over my hands because of the berry juice. And I'm like, girl, how did you get, like, you literally stopped, ate a couple of berries. How do you already have ants on you? Like,
and I'm like,
what are you doing?
Brush them off.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, is there something with, like, decay or death or something?
Ooh.
Like, I didn't get it. Anyway, but yeah. So then she gets to town, she basically meets with her cousin, and they hear someone, like, street criers announce that 3 highwaymen were arrested. And we don't really know what highwaymen are yet. We'll find out soon. Then we get Ione is Elspeth's. Man, I'm gonna find that hard. She's basically her opposite. Elspeth basically, like, keeps her emotions in check because she's talking to someone in her brain at all, like, half the time. So she's like, yeah, she's trying to keep that under wraps from everybody. But Ione, like, all of her emotions play over her face. She's alive. She attracts and she loves people. And Elspeth thinks that, like, she needs her on a day like today because it's her name day and she's visiting her father. And I guess the nightmare in her head wakes and clicks its teeth and says, "Yellow girl playing on scene. Yellow girl won't be queen." And the nightmare kind of talks in, like, riddles, which I kind of love, but I'm also like, whew. It's a lot.
My thing is that I'm like, okay, what is the deal with the nightmare? Like, is the intention that eventually the nightmare's gonna come out of her head and they're gonna fall in love? Like, that's where my head is right now. That's the space I'm living in.
Do you like last book when I was trying to hook everybody, all the side characters up?
Yeah.
But that's true.
But now my thing is I'm just trying to figure out who the love interest is in this entire first section. Because there's so many men.
I think it took me until halfway through the book to be like, sure. So, I can't tell you anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Elspeth also, I guess, thinks that nobody actually knows about the nightmare in her head. Her Aunt Opal took her in when she had the fever, and when she was better, there was no indication that she had any magic, and she was happy to believe that she didn't. Then they hear screaming, so that thought cuts off, and Ione says that destroyers love a new book. Destroyers, the king's elite soldiers, are there, and Elspeth says Orith, Willow, and his physicians, and Elspeth sees a woman with dark arm vein thingies, but they just, like, jet out of there, because if they start checking arms, Elspeth is going to the prison. Dungeon. Whatever.
Yeah.
So they get to Spindle House, which is her father's house, and Balakin, her father's steward, answers the door, and he's, like, super wary of her and pretty shitty to her, as are, like, everybody. I'm like, what the fuck? So she goes to the parlor, where her stepmother, Miriam, and her 13-year-old identical twin half-sisters, Mia and Dimia, are. And she hugs the twins, but her stepmother is, like, just a complete bitch to her.
Always. Why does the stepmother always have to be a bitch? Why can't there be one time when the stepmother's nice?
I'm just trying to think if this story follows any of the, like, Cinderella. I mean, now that we're talking about it, I'm like,
evil stepmother and twin, two sisters.
Yeah, who are, like, a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, very flighty and frivolous.
They're young, I guess, but it is still, like, keep them in check.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, maybe there is a connection. I just would need to think about it a bit more. So, Elspeth sits down and she touches, like, irises that are, like, in a vase next to her, and Miriam says she doesn't know what her father sees in the flower, and Elspeth is just like, she thinks it's her mother's name, so that's why he keeps them around. So, he still cares for her mother, we assume?
Even though she did?
Yeah.
And I don't actually know. I'm assuming she's dead, but...
Yeah, we do get confirmation, I think, this week that she's dead. So the twins are kind of just, like, prattling on, but they tell Elspeth and Ione that they were invited to celebrate the equinox at Stone, think that's how they say it, but it's basically the king's castle. And they're excited, but one of them brings up that, like, last year, High Prince Hoth played a game of truth with the Chalice card and got into a fight with a destrier, Jesper Yu. And the stepmother's like, I can't believe they let a woman be a destrier. Ugh. And you're like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You're a bad person as well as a bitch, so... But the first time I read it, I completely missed this because I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? But you do meet these characters later, so it's a little Easter eggy. And you find out what the Chalice card is later.
Yeah. In my part, literally, I have to go through what every single card is.
Yeah.
So that's fun for me.
The nightmare then says your father is coming, and Elspeth kind of starts, but then the nightmare asks if she can see it, and she closes her eyes and sees a royal blue light approaching her, and she thinks it's the well card, and it must be in her father's pocket. So we get, like, the cards have velvet edges on them, and that color is the light that the nightmare sees. So nobody else sees these lights, it's just that the nightmare can see them. So she can spot all these cards because the nightmare can see them.
Right.
And we're like, again, so much happening.
Yeah.
We also get that the well card was her mother's dowry. And 12 Providence cards make up the entire deck. And the old Book of Alders chronicles them all. And the cards are the only legal magic anyone can use, I guess, in this kingdom. And basically, anyone can use a card. You just need to tap it 3 times with a clear mind and intent. And then when you tap it 3 more times, the magic stops. But if you use them too long, there are consequences. And also, the cards are pretty rare, and Elspeth has only ever touched 1. So that's just a bit on the cards. So, and it's kind of sprinkled in about the cards.
There's 12 cards that make up the deck, but, like, does it tell us how many cards are in the deck?
It does, I think, a little later in my part, but it is like there are, I guess, 12 unique cards, but there's like 12 of one card, 11 of another card, 10 of another card, 9 of another card, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So yeah. But we do get like which ones are which a bit later.
Right.
So her father, Eric Spindle, walks in, and we get that he actually used to be the captain of the destroyers, and their job is to hunt down the infected, which is just kind of an interesting tidbit because you're just like, his daughter is infected, he definitely knows, and he's just like
ignoring it.
He didn't turn her in. But he wishes her a happy name's day and gives her a bouquet. I don't even know how to say normal words, of yarrow. And she thinks it's a tradition, and he would even give them to her after her mother's death. So that's where we get that her mom died. and her illness. So it sounds like her mom died of the fever that she ended up living through.
Okay.
But I don't actually know if we ever get that clarified.
Oh.
It's just what it seems like.
The mom's just gone. Who cares?
Yeah. Peace out. And he used to call her the fairest of all yarrow as a child.
That's nice.
Cute. And gave her yarrow flowers. Sweet.
So, like, I'm assuming this is, like, her birthday.
I'm assuming her name day. Yeah, I sounds like another word for...
Oh. I just looked up, what yarrow looked like, and they're pretty.
Oh, good.
It's like little bunch of... Actually.
Are you getting a tattoo?
No, but they're weeds, I think.
Oh.
Or, like, weeds for us, you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
We see them on line like the side of the highway all the time.
Yeah, but some of them, I guess, they're generally white as the weed, but I guess you can get different color ones.
Yeah. The different color ones look pretty.
They do.
And I'm sure for people that don't have them as weeds on the side of the road, maybe they think they're lovely.
Well, my favorite flower is a weed.
That's true.
So
yeah, you're right.
Lupins. Nerium then asks why he came in, and he's like, I came to see my daughter, and basically, like, shuts her down, because
Yeah.
she's just like, we were gonna come see you. Why did you bother? He's like, it's her name's day. Name day, whatever. So they get called to supper, but Nerium, like, holds Elsa back for a second and tells her that her father wants her to go to Equinox, but she won't go because last time she made a fool of herself with a boy.
Ugh.
And we get his name as Alex. And we're like, okay. And apparently his mother kept calling on her at Spindle House. Spindle. Yes, Spindle House. And they didn't tell, like, this boy or his mother that she didn't live there. And now she's pissed about it. She's like, you could have just said where I lived and they would have left you alone.
Yeah, but it's like they want to work really hard to make, I don't know if it's like to make them seem like a happy family, but like they're trying to cover up the fact that she does not live with them.
Yeah, and almost cover up the fact that she exists. Like, her stepmother is kind of hoping that she just never comes back and nobody realizes she's a person.
Yeah.
So Nerium says, like, they have an arrangement. Elspeth stays out of court, and her father pays the Hawthorns handsomely. And we're like, okay. So her father is paying her aunt and uncle to keep her.
Mm-hmm.
So then Elspeth just says that she's not hungry and to give her excuses. And Nerium just says that she always does. And I think I just found this part a bit interesting because I was just like, she's not a super hardcore badass character. Like, she was basically bullied out and told to leave, and I just expected, like, I don't know, we read so many stories with badass, like,
yeah,
and I'm not upset with it because I probably would feel similarly if someone was being a complete bitch to me.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to stay there either, but like we're used to women standing up for themselves and being like, fuck you, I'm gonna stay here and have dinner with my dad, like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Instead of her being like, well, okay, I guess I'll leave, goodbye.
Yeah. So it was just kind of interesting, and I appreciate diversity in characters, but it was just surprising from some of the books we've read. But yeah, she leaves, and then she ends up, like, crying outside, and she's angry and hurt, and the nightmare kind of tells her that running is what Nerium wants. And she says her father doesn't actually want her company, or he wouldn't have sent her away. And I kind of appreciate that the nightmare is, like, trying to hype her up and be like, you should have stayed if you wanted to. So she basically, like, sits down by the river, and she ends up buying an apple and some cheese, and she waits for Ione, but, like, she doesn't come. So I don't know. I'm kind of pissed at Ione too. I'm like, why didn't she leave? It's Elspeth's name day, so why didn't her cousin go with her?
Yeah, no, it's weird. But maybe she was already sitting down to dinner, so it would have been more weird for her to get up and leave.
I guess, but it seems like she must have stayed the night because she doesn't, like, go find her ever. It's just weird. I was kind of mad at Ione for that, but then I'm like, it is her aunt and uncle too, so it's not aunt, her step aunt, and her uncle. So I guess I don't know.
And I mean, I don't know. Maybe you have a different, like, different feelings for her. But so far for me, I'm not crazy about her.
Oh yeah. No, and I'm thinking, like, at the beginning of the book, I was like, it's weird that she doesn't go with her. Like, when I read it the first time, I was like, why wouldn't she leave? But
I sort of felt like this is sort of a bad on Elspeth for not going in and being like, I can't stay here. Can we go? And, like, she sort of abandoned Ione to dinner there.
Yeah.
Because, like, it'd be really awkward for if the stepmother came in, sat down, everybody else was sitting down to dinner, and for the stepmother to be like, oh, she had to go. Like, what are you gonna do, like, in the middle of dinner with your family? Be like, well, peace out, bitches. Like,
yeah, I just feel like she could have met her before it got dark. I'm like, you'd probably leave straight after supper and be like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it was just weird because I guess it can happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she doesn't meet up with her, so she takes her crow's foot charm and she enters the wood. We start another chapter and it says, nothing is free, nothing is safe, magic is love, but also it's hate. It comes at a cost, you're found and you're lost. Magic is love, but also it's hate. Cool?
Sure.
So we get another flashback, and it's to her handmaiden running and screaming, and Elspeth is delirious with black veins, and her father is putting her in a carriage, and 2 days later, she woke up in the woods with her aunt, and her aunt kept checking for magic, but felt none, and Elspeth just prayed it was a dream, and her father would come back. And then we get 4 months later from that moment. Her uncle came home with 6 men, a bloody sword, and smiling, and she followed them and listened because he ended up getting a Providence card. So they just leave the Providence card in the library, and she goes and sees it, and it's the Nightmare card. So you can use the Nightmare card to speak into the minds of others, but if you use it for too long, it'll reveal your darkest fears. So she looks at the card, and it's got burgundy trim, and there's a monster on the card, and he's hunched, vicious claws, jagged teeth, and bright yellow eyes. And she felt like it was watching her. So she touches the card, and she smells salt and feels white-hot pain, and then she wakes up on the library floor, and she knows she's not alone. So she hears claws clicking, and she looks around and asks if anyone is there, and then a voice answers her, echoing in her mind. And she realizes this is her magic, a small touch on a card, and she absorbs something from it. So first she thinks she might have power, maybe she'll be able to do what the card does by touching it, which would be cool too. But she can't talk into minds, and she can just speak to the nightmare in her head. So she reads the old book of Alders until she has it memorized. And it talks of the deepest fears, and she expects either to have nightmares or to feel haunted because of the card, because that's the downside of the card is your deepest fear. But that doesn't happen either. And the nightmare, I think other than that first time when he answered from in her head, he doesn't say anything to her until the day the physicians came and he saved her life. So that was the very first thing that happened. And he has his own magic, which is seeing the Providence cards as different colors. And when she asks for help, he basically makes her stronger and faster, and her senses are keener. And she asks him questions, but he doesn't really answer any of them. And he doesn't tell her who he is and how he was in the card. And it's been 11 years, and nobody knows that he's in her head.
So
which sounds wild.
So I wonder, is that card useless now?
I wondered that too.
The nightmare card?
I can tell you.
All right. Maybe not right this minute.
Yeah.
But later.
No, yeah. No, we get the response to that. Yeah. Okay. So we go back to the present, and she's on the forest road, and it's night, and she's alone, and she's almost home.
So, okay, hang on. I need clarification on something. This is something else I didn't understand. Yeah. So, she didn't get the nightmare as soon as she, it hasn't been around since she had the fever.
No, it's only since she touched the card.
So I guess my question is, why was the physician chasing her if she'd already survived the fever and had no magic? Why did she have to get tossed out a window?
Because she still has black veins. So it's clear that she had the fever, and everybody that has the fever apparently gets magic. So they just start checking people for black veins and then throwing them in the dungeon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, she's on the forest road and she's close to home when two highwaymen jump out in masks and cloaks, and one grabs her mouth and the other one holds an ivory hilt dagger to her chest and tells her to stay quiet or he'll use it. And she like grasps for the nightmare and they ask her name and the nightmare says to lie. And she says it's Jane Yarrow, and the nightmare just says to tell them that she has nothing of value, but she's afraid that then they'll take, like,
something
they'll
else.
rape her.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Which I think pisses off the nightmare a lot. Like, his rage starts to boil up, and I'm assuming that's why. It kind of seems like it. He might just be pissed that they're holding her too. Like, who knows? But it is one of those moments where you're like, are they falling in love?
Yes.
Is he pissed about this because he loves her, or justice, or what? But she just says that she works for Sir Hawthorne, and they ask about where he keeps his cards. And she thinks in her head that the punishment for stealing cards is a slow, grisly public death. So, like, these are bad guys. Yeah. They're stealing cards. But she says she's just a maid and she doesn't know. And the nightmare asks in her head to be let out. And she's just like, stop, I'm trying to think. And one of the guards is just like, are you daft? Can you hear me? Like, what are you doing? Because she's having a conversation in her head, also trying to think, also trying to talk to them. It's just kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
The one with the dagger comes closer, and he smells of cedar, smoke, and cloves. And
so
he says,
"Search." Is that a hint? The fact that he smells of cedar, smoke, and cloves. The fact that she can smell him. Is this her mate?
Listen, I'm not giving you an answer. I didn't mean to laugh while I was saying it. But just says, "Search her pockets," and they don't find anything. And he says, "Check her sleeves," and she shouts into her mind, "Help me now!" And her veins burn, and she hunches over, and the nightmare laughs. And they just ask what's wrong with her. And, like, one of the guard hesitates, and she hits him, and he goes flying into the ground and drops his dagger. And the other guard tries to grab a sword, but she grabs his wrist and tells him not to come here again and pushes him off the road into the mist, and then she runs to her uncle's house. And she, like, sees that her arms show the black, like, shooting up and down her arms. And she knows that, like, they can't report her because they were literally trying to steal cards. So they won't, like, report that she has the fever.
Right.
And they also
don't even
really know who she is, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just assume, I think, because, like, where did she get that strength and shit?
Yeah.
So she talks to the nightmare then, and she asks why his magic burns, and he says his magic moves, bites, soothes, and frights, and she is young and not bold, and he is unflinching, 500 years old. Interesting. We love a 500-year-old.
Yeah, and a 20-year-old.
Male main character. So the beginning of the next chapter is a warning for the cards. For, like, getting the cards in the first place, for how they were created. So we get that the spirit warned him nothing was free, so he bargained the payment was dear, blood and bone, and parts of him. So it doesn't explicitly say it here, but it kind of implies that, like, when the cards were made, whoever was having them made had to give something up to get each card.
Okay.
So this basically just says 12 blessings, 12 curses, 12 cards. Interesting. So back to, I guess it's the next day. Maybe it's a few days later. I'm not really sure. But Ione's home. How'd she get home? She walk home alone? Was it dark? I don't know. I can't answer any of these questions.
Could her father have gotten a carriage for her?
Yeah, or her uncle might have sent her back in a carriage, maybe. I don't know. We don't know. But it's breakfast
It's
time,
also
and Ione.
it's very Pride and Prejudice, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah,
God,
which is kind of like,
we've been invited to the ball.
yeah, it is. It is a bit historical.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So Ione opens a letter and she's excited because they're all invited to Equinox at Stone. And her aunt's just like, we can't go, we're behind on last year's taxes. And she says that King Rowan is after every penny. And apparently this was the worst harvest in ages, so like they're not going to be invited in if they're not going to be paying taxes.
Yeah. Or maybe they go, it'll be an excuse for the king to be like, pay up.
Yeah. So her uncle then says that they're going, and he leaves the table and he comes back with a burgundy glowing pocket. And obviously Elspeth knows what that is. But he puts the card on the table and says that it's the tax they owe and then some. And her aunt and cousin had no idea that he had it, and he just says that he stole it off a highwayman years ago. And Elspeth just thinks, like, he doesn't say how his sword was bloody and how he probably killed somebody. And her aunt, no, she thinks too that her uncle looks different, and she's not sure she knows him anymore, which is just interesting. And we didn't really get it yet, but they also, I guess her aunt and uncle also have two sons who are younger. One is Aldrich and the other is Lynn. And Lynn tries to touch the card, but Aldrich says that he'll rip it. And her uncle picks it up and, like, pulls on it to rip it, but the cards can't be destroyed. So, like, they're magic, they can't be destroyed. You know.
Convenient.
Yes, it would be pretty shitty if they could, though. Lynn then, says that it's the Shepherd King's magic, and her aunt says magic gifted to him by the spirit of the wood that he used to make the cards. And her uncle says infected, more like. So, like, there's a lot of different
opinions
and, like, theories. But we kind of do get into it a bit later. It was really, like, the beginning. I was just like, I'm just going to fly by this and see what happens, because hopefully they explain it. The nightmare then says, a heart of gold can turn to rot. What he wrote, what he did, was all done for naught. His cards are but weapons, his kingdom now cruel, shepherd of folly, king of the fools. Okay,
well, this
talking about the Shepherd King.
This makes it seem like he is the Shepherd King. Stop.
I just took it as talking about him.
Your shoulders. You know.
Listen, I do know everything. I don't know everything. Ione then says it must be worth a lot to the king, and her uncle smiles at her and says it is. And Elspeth is just like, that's a creepy smile. But later she looks at the Book of Alders, and it has her aunt's and her mother's names in it, Opal and Iris Whitebeam, before her aunt was married. And she thinks, like, her mother used to read it to her as a child, and she drew in the margins. And she remembers asking her mother and aunt how the Shepherd King made the cards. And her aunt said, the spirit of the wood is an ageless deity, and I think they're,
yeah. Of course it is.
Yeah. Smells like salt, and is invisible in the mist. So the spirit of the wood is basically the mist that they've been talking about, kind of. Or is responsible for the mist. So people used to go to the spirit for blessings and gifts. And she granted the Shepherd King strange, powerful magic to share with his kingdom, so the cards. But everything had a price. For each card, he gave up something. And this is kind of a flashback, too. So Ione then says, like his soul, and her aunt nods. And we get that her aunt then says, like, when, I guess, the people got the cards, nobody would go to the spirit for gifts anymore. And she basically got pissed and vengeful. And she created the mist to lure people in to get lost and lose their minds forever. And the mist is now spreading. So basically the spirit of the wood gave the Shepherd King the cards.
power to make the cards.
People weren't grateful, and she got vengeful, and now the mist is spreading. And it's kind of a common, like, it's kind of a theme that the mist has been spreading and spreading. We get it a few times.
Right.
So this is where we get, like, children have gone into the mist and survived and got fevers. And then they get magic, but the magic degenerates them over time. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, did Elspeth and her mother end up in the mist and her mother died because she wasn't, like, it sounds like only kids can live. Mm-hmm. Maybe, like, the spirit of the wood, like, thinks kids are innocent?
Yeah, doesn't hate kids?
Yeah, I don't know. Possibly. So yeah, apparently after most of the cards were made, the Shepherd King went to the spirit and asked how to stop the mist. And with the information that she gave him, he wrote this book, the old Book of Alders.
Why would she tell him how to stop the mist when she made the mist?
Because it basically says you need to unite 12 cards of the deck on the shortest day with black blood of salt, so infected blood, at the king's tree, and the sickness will end and the mist will lift. And the Shepherd King got that information, but then he wasn't able to do it because he bartered away his twin alder card, which is the one card of its kind. Mm-hmm. So he was like, I'll give you anything if you tell me how to get rid of the mist. And she was like, give me this card, the one twin alder card.
Hilarious.
And he was like, sure. And then she was like, okay, this is how you do it. Fuck you. Basically.
I love it.
So he can't complete the deck, but, like, nobody can complete the deck because nobody can find this card now. The Spirit of the Wood has it. Elspeth goes to talk to her aunt in the garden where she's making some tinctures, and I'm like, she's just an old witch, and I love her. But Elspeth says that she shouldn't go to the equinox because it's been so long since she's gone to court, and Miriam would hate it. And her aunt is just like, all the more reason to go if you're... Wait, her stepmother would hate it, yeah. But her aunt is like, that's all the more reason to go. Like, fuck her, basically. And then she's like, and you can go see Alex. And she's just like, ugh. And she thinks, like, he used to make her laugh when she was 17, but she doesn't like him. And she thinks, like, maybe she never even did like him. He was just there. But they kind of have a nice moment, and her aunt tells her that, like, living like a hermit is no life for a young woman, and, like, she should try to go do things and have fun and whatever.
So, Alex is the one that Miriam said earlier is who she embarrassed the family with.
Yeah. Because he's clearly trying to, like, or was at the time, was trying to court her, but then couldn't find her, which is just kind of funny. Her aunt then gives her a letter, and she knows it's from her father asking her to go, and her aunt tells her that he's trying. But Elspeth kind of thinks, like, it's not just her father and his family that she's avoiding, she's also worried about her degeneration. Because we got that, like, if you have magic, you end up degenerating. But she doesn't know what hers is, and she's worried that, like, it could show up out of nowhere and be an obvious tell that, like, she has magic. And if she's at court, it's full of destriers and physicians. So she's afraid that something obvious will be degenerating inside of her, and they'll figure it out. Yeah. And then she thinks, or maybe she'll just get sick and waste away like her mother did. And I think that might be the end of Speak of Her Mother, but I can't remember for sure. She just says it's easier if she doesn't go, and her aunt tells her that she is loved and always has a place here, but she's young and should go live her life, and she says that she doesn't need to even go for her own happiness, but if she goes just to piss Miriam off, that'll make her aunt happy.
Love it.
Which is just kind of fun.
I love a bit of revenge.
Yeah. So before they go to the court, we get that Elspeth has a dream. And she actually hasn't had a dream since she touched the card, which is wild. But she thinks, like, the nightmare in her head doesn't sleep. He just wanders her mind when she sleeps. And this night that she's having a dream, it feels like she is trespassing on him. And in the dream, she's in an ancient room with a stone in the middle, and there's a man in gold armor on it. And when he looks up, he has yellow eyes. And then when he notices her there, it shifts to her uncle's office, and the man becomes the monster from the card. And she can tell he's angry, and he asks if she came to spy, and she asks who the man was. And he asks if she wants to hear a story, and he says, "There once was a girl, clever and good, who tarried in shadows in the depths of the wood. There was also a king, a shepherd by his crook, who reigned over magic and wrote the old book. The two were together, so the two were the same. The girl, the king, and the monster they became."
Oh my, okay, so obviously the nightmare is the Shepherd King, and that's who she saw in that thing, and he is the nightmare. Maybe he's cursed. Maybe he was cursed to be in the nightmare card.
Maybe.
Oh my god, can you just tell me if I'm right?
No. I can't. There's more to it, so we'll get there.
Not soon enough.
No, not soon enough. So the next chapter, we get that magic smells like salt. So,
I mean,
interesting. When magic is happening, it smells like salt.
Because whenever I think salt, I think, ooh, it's gonna repel magic and ghosts. Not that it smells like
true.
it.
Well, yeah, I was kind of like, what does it smell like? And it just makes me think of the ocean.
Yeah, like salt. Does it even have a smell?
I don't know, and I didn't think of it until this moment.
When we're done here, I'm gonna go smell some salt. And I'll be like, this is what magic smells like.
Yeah. So we get now that the mist is expanding and it's cutting Blunder off from the outside world and it's covering everything. And if the cards aren't united soon, it'll take over and the spirit of the wood will roam. So that's not good. Ione and Elspeth are walking arm in arm to Stone, and Ione asks what the king will give them for the nightmare card. They're kind of just chatting about it. So we get that 87 cards were made. And there were 12 black horses, 11 golden eggs, 10 prophets, 9 white eagles, 8 maidens, 7 chalices, 6 wells, 5 iron gates, 4 signs, 3 mirrors, 2 nightmares, and 1 twin altar. So, yeah, it's like that song.
The Partridge in a Pear Tree?
Yeah. I was thinking more the bog, but the Partridge in the Pear Tree.
The Rattling Bog.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously the nightmare card is very rare. And even now, sorry, this is a bit of a sidebar, but some of these cards, I don't even know what they do now when I finish both of the books. So some of them get important and some of them aren't really. It does
tell you in my part what each card does.
Yeah. I just don't remember.
That's fine.
But some of them you see a lot and some of them they're like, rah. But yeah, so obviously the nightmare card is super rare. There's only 2 of them. And Elspeth says her uncle had a lot of time to decide what he wanted for the card. And then the nightmare says, "The hawthorn tree carries few seeds, its branches are wary, it's lost all its leaves. Be wary the man who bargains and thieves, he'll offer your soul to get what he needs." Is he warning her against her uncle here?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Because Hawthorne is his last name, right?
Yeah. So, I'm interesting. So Ione says her father asked her to come when he presents the card so that she could be introduced to Crown Prince Hoth. And Elspeth is like, that sounds like a punishment more than an honor. and then asks if, like, that's what the trade is, just to introduce her. And Elspeth says, like, that both of the princes are brutes, and they're destroyers, and they're violent and horrid. And Ione just says, like, maybe Hoth is different, and he could be a true leader, and maybe he'll protect instead of oppress like his father. And Elspeth is just like, there's no way. And Ione pulls away and says, if everyone was like her, Blunder would never change. And Elspeth says, it's delusional. And Ione says she has hope.
Ugh.
And then she walks away.
Ugh.
And we're like, obviously, you shouldn't have hope.
No. Hope is terrible.
So then, I guess she's looking around at all the people, and we get that everybody there, like, takes a name after a tree to honor the spirit of the wood, and then they wear, like, insignia with their tree on it so you can differentiate families.
I missed all of this when I was doing my reading.
It's because it's the first time you read and you're like, too much, overwhelming.
It's true. I did.
Yeah, I did too the first time.
So I guess my question is, was everybody in town invited, or is this just like the fancy families? Like, is this just like the upper class people? Also, is it only the upper class people that have the cards, or can anybody get their hand on a card and then do what they want with it? Like, what's the protocol here?
So, I guess a few things. I feel like they invited most people, if not everybody, because, like, they even invited them and they didn't have their taxes in. The cards are just who has them. So, like, I guess if somebody loses a card, though, and then you come around and you have the card, everyone's going to know you stole it. So it's like, how do you balance that? I don't know. But you'd think it would also, like, your status in society would change if you do have a card.
Right.
So, Elspeth then goes over to her father, and Nerium is just pissed. But she just talks to her father for a bit, and he says it was a bad harvest, and she says, like, the mist seems thicker, and we're just like, it is a bit of small talk, but we're also like, this is a big thing, the mist getting bigger and the harvest being shitty.
Yeah, they're trying to reinforce it.
Yeah. And her father says that the king would pay handsomely for the 2 missing cards. So he's only missing 2 cards from his deck. And we're assuming one of them is the Nightmare card, and the other one has to be the Twin Alders. So, like, the Nightmare is super
sought after?
Rare, I guess. Well, it would be super, like, you'd give him anything. You'd give her uncle anything for it. If, like, that's the only other card you need than the one that's lost forever. But then he basically just tells her to send her stuff to stay with them, and she's just like, she thinks, like, maybe if she wasn't in a fight with Ione, she might stay with her aunt and uncle. But she's like, nah, I'll stay with my family. So she goes to the Great Hall and then immediately sees this Alex Laburnum person. And he smiles at her and she just thinks shit. And the Nightmare just like groans. And I love the Nightmare in these scenes. Mm-hmm. And I just love the Nightmare completely in most of the scenes. But Alex comes over and says he thought he saw her, but he was afraid that he dreamed it by wishing too greatly. Ew. And she's just like, ugh.
I don't like it.
He goes to give her a hug, and she just, like, shakes his hand instead and is like, nope. And he asks her to sit with him, and she says she has to sit with her father, and he says he'll ask him then. And she's just like, ugh. She looks around and notices cards that are there. She sees a yellow, which is the golden egg, a turquoise, which is the chalice, and a white, which is the white eagle, a gray, which is the prophet, and red, the side blade. No, the side. And black, which is the black horses. And we get that, I think this is the first time it's mentioned, but all the destriers carry a black horse card.
Yeah.
So, that's just...
Yeah, if she sees a black card, she knows it's a destrier coming.
Yeah. And then she just says to him another time and sits in an empty seat and rubs her eyes. And I'm like, you're not even sitting next to your family, even though you just gave that excuse.
But I feel like she's really trying hard to be like, dude, back off. I don't
100%. Yeah.
He just doesn't seem to be taking it very well.
No, he is not. And she just, like, sits at the table and she's kind of, like, lost in thought. And her neighbor, a boy next to her, has to, like, pull her up so that she's standing when the king enters. And he asks if she's okay. And they drink some wine together. And he tells her that he's Emery Yu. And she knows that that means he's the king's youngest nephew. And she introduces herself to him as well. And she thinks, like, she doesn't feel well. And Emery talks to his neighbor for a second, and she sees, like, the red scythe card. And she knows there are only 4 of those in existence, and the Rowans own them all. So she knows that the person next to Emery is Prince Renelm. So that's the second prince, not the crown prince.
Yes. Prince Hoth is the crown prince, the heir to the throne, and this is Prince Renelm, who is the second born.
The spare.
Yeah. Spares are important.
So, yeah. She feels overwhelmed. I think because of the cards, because of where she is, because of her fight with Ione. Like, there's just a lot going on. And she says she needs air. And Emery goes to take her arm, and then, like, she finally is like, fine. She doesn't want to take it, but she agrees. And they leave. And Emery just, like, stole a carafe of wine. And he's walking with her. And I was like, is he going to be a love interest? But we find out that he's much younger after. So we're like, no. But I'm like, he's also drunk.
Yep.
So how young is he? But anyway. He tells her that she looks pale, and she tries to leave him, but he insists on helping her get back to her rooms and stuff. But then he, like, cages her against the banister, and she thinks, like, they're on stairs, and she's like, if she fell off, she wonders if it would kill her. Like, if he pushed her, and the nightmare just tells her it would just maim her.
I love it.
I love him so much.
Honesty.
Yeah. But then Emery tells her there's something odd about her. And he touches her bare wrist. And he says, I see you, Elspeth Spindle. I see a pretty maiden with long black hair, charcoal eyes. I see a yellow gaze narrowed by hate. I see darkness and shadow. And I see your fingers long and pale, covered in blood.
Yikes.
Like, what the fuck is going on here? And we're like...
Premonition of the future.
Yeah, that seems like it could be magic, doesn't it? What is happening? So she tries to shake him off, but she can't. So she just, like, slaps him in the face.
I wish this was still an appropriate thing to do. Like, if a man is bothering you, you could just go, ugh, and give him a...
If a man is holding me and won't let go, I would 100% slap him in the face right now.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen, like, and not that it does. It definitely happens. Doesn't happen to me.
Yeah. And it doesn't normally, like...
It's not,
I don't know, if my first instinct...
super regular occurrence in our worldviews.
Well, where we are right now. I think I'd probably go to punch him before I'd slap him.
I've never punched anyone before, so I don't know
what you do. Yeah,
probably scream.
Yeah. Well, also a good option. So he still doesn't let go after she slaps him, and it like starts to hurt her arm, and then someone in a black cloak pushes him off and talks to him, and she can't hear what they're saying, but she can just see that Emery is, like, laughing uncontrollably, and it's, like, weird. It's not, like, a funny time laughing. It's, like, a weird laughing. But the man tells him to leave and then goes back to Elspeth. And he apologizes for his brother and says that Elm, so Prince Renelm, who is going by Elm now, told him that Emery was drinking, so he came to check. And she looks at him and she's just like, he's very handsome. And she immediately knows that it's Raven Yu, because she just knows who the people are. And she knows that he's actually the captain of the Destroyers, so took over for her dad. And she just says she didn't see him in the hall, and she hasn't met him. And he asks her name, and she says Spindle, and he says he knows her father, but she doesn't live with him. So that's kind of why I was like, do some people just not know she exists? Because it kind of seems like he didn't know she existed.
Right.
But she just says it's not his business. And then she says that she's tired, and he offers to show her to her room. So she's just like, fine. He opens the door for her when she fumbles with it, and she's just like drained after the wine and Emery, and she just thanks him. And he says then that his name is Raven Yu, and she's just like, I know. And he tells her to sleep well, Miss Spindle. And she goes to bed, but she wonders how Raven knew to look for Emery when Raven wasn't in the Great Hall. So, like, how was he talking to Elm about it? She's confused.
Super confusing.
Yeah.
So, as you've sort of been saying, so, like, each chapter has, like, a little riddle about something on it before we start. So this one has the maiden. Be wary the pink, be wary the rose, be wary of beauty divine unopposed. Her thorns will grow sharp, she'll eat her own heart. Be wary of beauty divine unopposed. So, yikes.
Interesting.
So, when she wakes up, her two half-sisters, Dimia and Naya, are hovering over her bed. And, like, it's mid-afternoon. And I'm like, I didn't realize she was partying that late. Like, she literally went to bed before every other person.
Yeah, she just slept forever.
Yeah. Would not be me.
Because, like, no, me neither. I wish.
So they saw her leave the hall with Emery Yu. And they're like, oh my god, he's so handsome. And, like, they're sort of initially being really giggly with it. But then the evil stepmom, Miriam, that's how I refer to her. She's super snarky, but just tells all of them to steer clear of Emery. Like, she's like, even you, Elspeth. So, like...
You don't care about her, so why?
Yeah, but Elspeth just, like, says, listen... I know you guys are, like, trying to get some hot goss, but he was an absolute pig. And then Miriam... What?
I'm like, yeah. A bit, but also clearly there was something going on. It wasn't just...
No, and I do think she's using, like, prior behaviors to explain this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Miriam actually then gets into some hot goss and tells them that there are rumors that he's, like, off. And that throughout his life, he's either locked away in his room with a new illness, like, every other day, or he's drunk off his rocker saying strange things. And then, I guess, they ask, or Miriam asks, if he said anything strange to Elspeth. And Elspeth starts thinking and stressing and wondering, like, Emery said something about the yellow eyes, so she's like, oh, fuck. So she's like, maybe he knows about the nightmare in my head. But I guess she doesn't really go that deep into the thought. Because then all of a sudden the two girls change their tune and call him an absolute thorn. And then I guess Miriam gives us more goss that the Yus have sent Emery to live here at Stone with the king so that the king can control Emery's temper, which is wild.
Yeah.
So the dad comes in. Oh, sorry. The prince has a card, and it's the scythe card that he can use to control anyone, and it's reserved for royalty. So that's sort of why Emery was sent here, because the king and the prince can control him.
Which is terrible.
It is, yes. But I mean, I guess if they feel like they have no other recourse, what are you going to do?
No, I just mean the card in general is terrifying.
Yeah, that too. So the dad comes in then, Elspeth's dad, and Elspeth feels weird seeing him and her sisters and stepmom in the same room. It's like realities colliding that she didn't appreciate. So she gets ready for the day, and the dad says that all the ladies are going for a walk on in the garden while the men while the men go hunting.
Yeah, so it is very, like, it's got those historical
Yeah.
kind of things.
Very.
The same thing happened in A Kingdom of the second one, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
They went for a hunt. Like, it is very.
Yeah. So obviously she is not excited about this walk in the garden. But she just doesn't say anything. So as soon as they get on the walk, her sisters leave her alone because they're going to socialize with other people. And obviously the stepmother does not want to stay in her company for another minute. So she just walks the gardens with the women. And they're sort of on the outskirts of the group. Whatever. Then she sees in the group that, like, some people's pockets are shining. So she knows there are cards interspersed in the group. And notices that most of them are pink for the maiden card. So she goes looking for Ione because she feels bad about their disagreement then. Like, we don't really get anything else about these.
What the cards do or anything.
Yeah, and just, like, why she felt the need to mention that bit.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that she can see a few colors.
Yeah. I feel like it must overwhelm her or something when she sees them. I don't know.
Maybe. So she can't find Ione. So she finds her aunt instead. And she asks her aunt a little bit about Emery because she's trying to sort of figure out who he is. And then says, have any other children survived the fever? So I feel like she just wants to, like, pick her aunt's brain about, like, everything that happened and everything that's going on with this Emery person.
Mm-hmm.
Because she assumes that he survived the fever and that's why he's a weirdo.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe that's why, like, maybe he has magic because, like, how else would he know about the yellow-eyed man in her brain?
Yeah.
But her aunt just tells her that the law is that any child with the fever is to be turned in and brought to the dungeon. But Elspeth's like, my dad was the captain of the Destriers. Or Destrier.
Destrier is what I've been saying. No fucking idea.
But, like, now that you're saying it, like, in my head, I was calling them the Destriers because it was sort of French spelling-ish.
Yeah.
But then when I heard you say it, it sort of reminds me of the word destroyers.
Yes.
Destriers. So I'm trying to put emphasis on the destroy when it's Destriers. Destriers. Anyway, I don't actually know.
We're trying our best here.
Yeah. So, like, her dad was, like, the one that had to enact this law, and he hid her.
Wild.
So she's like, stands to reason that maybe other parents would try and protect their children, too.
Yeah. It seems naive. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
To think that nobody else would have hid their children.
Yeah. But the aunt just says, like, Elspeth has no magic after getting the fever. So, like, no tells that the Destriers can use to spot and find her out. So, like, I guess she's kind of saying, like, maybe other parents did hide their kids during the fever, but eventually they were caught out by their use of magic.
Yeah. And I guess deterioration and shit.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, then all of a sudden, the pink of a maiden card, like, nearly blinds her. And the person who's holding it, like, approaches. Turns out it's Ione who has it.
Wild.
And she's like, holy shit, did my uncle trade the nightmare card for a maiden card? Like, plus something else, considering, like, the value in comparison. Like, maiden cards are a dime a dozen. Not actually a dime a dozen, but there's only, like, I think 9 or 8 of them.
8 or 9, yeah.
So, like, they are quite a bit more popular than a nightmare card, where there's only 2 of them. So she's like, obviously, for him to give up his nightmare card for a maiden card, it's not a equal trade. So there must be something else, too.
Plus his taxes.
Plus the taxes.
Or are we just waiving the taxes, maybe?
Yeah. And she asks where Ione has been, because she's been trying to find her, hasn't been able to find her. And she lies and says she was wandering the castle. But, like, obviously, Elspeth can't very well say, you have a card on you, because, like, that would give away that she can see all the auras.
She does, though.
I know, but not right now.
Yeah.
Not in front of her aunt.
Well, yes, that's true.
So she speaks to Nightmare in her head, and they both come to the conclusion that Ione hasn't used the maiden card. So she hauls her off to the side path alone to try and talk to her and, like, smooth things over after their argument. And, like, I don't even remember what their argument was about. It was so, like...
Yeah, she was just like...
It wasn't even an important... I don't know. It just didn't feel important as an argument enough for it to still be relevant.
Yeah, I guess she's just kind of... Ione sees her as controlling, but she's trying to look out for her. It's like a...
I know. Like, I get it. It's just when I was reading the book, it didn't feel like an argument. Like, it just felt like a passing little disagreement. And, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel extreme enough to warrant them still being in a fight.
Yeah. And I think they probably would have been fine, except for what happens now, basically. Like, I think they might have, like, patched over, forgot about it, and then Elspeth is like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, because this is the thing. So she tries to smooth things over, but then she asks, why did you lie just now? And, like, Ione's like, I didn't lie, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, then how'd you get that maiden card in your pocket? And Ione is like, how did you know? Like, she's shocked that Elspeth knows that she has a maiden card in her pocket. And then she's like, were you with Hoth, Rowan, and did he give you that card? Because, like, we just finished saying that, like, they're all essentially little, like, awful people.
Yeah.
Like, pigs. So, she's, you know. Anyway, Ione just, like, doesn't understand why she hates Rowan so much. Because I don't think she has any personal, like, she doesn't have a personal story as to why she hates him. I'm wondering, like, is the Nightmare's hatred sort of seeping into her, and, like, that's why she hates it?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I don't know if a personal story ever really comes up, but I think, like, the king is the one enforcing the rules. So I can see why she hates the king.
Yeah.
But, like, it seems like she doesn't know anything about his sons. She's just like, they're shit because he's shit.
Yeah.
Which,
and
like,
the rumor
is probably
that they're
true.
all shit.
Yeah.
So, Nightmare speaks in riddles and says, the berry of Rowan's is red, always red. The earth at its trunk is dark with bloodshed. No water nor cloth can lessen its spread. He'll ask for a maiden, then turn her heart dead. So, I don't know what it means.
It's partially a warning about what happens when you use the maiden card.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll find out about shortly anyway.
Yeah.
So Elspeth just begs Ione not to use the card and tells her, like, she's perfect the way she is and that the maiden card will take that away. Keeping in mind, as of this moment, we don't 100% know what it does.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and yeah, that's kind of a theme in the book with
like
this card.
With this card.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's for the ladies. It's a maiden card.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she just says that, like, the Rowans they offer it as a gift, but it also makes Ione beholden to them, which I don't really understand, because, like, if she wants to use the maiden card, that should be her right. Like, she's not beholden to them.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but anyway. Ione asks if Elspeth loves her, and she just says, like, more than anything. And then she just responds that she has to let her make her own choices.
Which is kind of fair.
It is fair, but like they have more of a sister vibe than a cousin vibe.
Well,
but
since 9, I guess they grew up together, so
yeah.
So, well, yeah.
But I mean, I see what she's saying. Like, you are gonna have to let her do her own thing at some point.
Yeah.
So
she's also following her father's wishes, so it is like she can't really just not do.
Yeah.
Because Elspeth says so. She's gonna just like go against her father too.
Yeah. So I guess Elspeth like sort of wanders further into the garden after that by herself and wanders into the mist and like settles down next to a tree and cries. And she talks to Nightmare and tells him that if Ione uses the card enough, she'll become cold and not Ione anymore. And he tells her that magic isn't vanity and that the maiden is a deeply misunderstood card. But then he reminds her that no matter the card, nothing is free and magic always comes at a cost.
Yeah.
Yet not for her so far.
Yeah, that we don't know what her cost is. But this is kind of like the foreshadowing of the fact that the maiden card is misunderstood because everybody's just like, it's for the women.
I get it.
Yeah.
So then, all of a sudden, Raven Yu comes up behind her, and she is distracted by the light coming from his pocket. He has the second Nightmare card, which is interesting.
I don't know why she assumes it's the second one.
Oh, that's true. It could just be the one that her uncle just traded away.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily... Like, I would have been like, oh, weird. The king gave it to his nephew immediately.
Yeah.
But maybe she can tell because she got something from the lot. Like, maybe there's a difference with the one that she took something from. But it doesn't seem like it.
I just feel like... No, it couldn't be. I just feel like the first one she emptied out. I feel like she just empties out cards and they just haven't checked. But you were right, because earlier you said the king's not going to accept a card without checking the magic first.
Because it could be a fraud card, right? You definitely check it.
But it's what makes sense in my brain. But now I know that doesn't mean anything, but still.
When you read more,
anyway,
get more theories.
This is the thing about this book, is the theories are everywhere.
Yeah.
So we have I think it's the next chapter. So there's text on a card, and it says, the highwayman meets the hangman. Behind the mask, the highwayman carries 2 eyes for seeing, 2 eyes for hearing, and 1 tongue for lying. There is no second chance for the cut purse. The highwayman meets the hangman. Don't know what it means.
No, but it seems like, I think the highwayman meets the hangman is like a common saying.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm like, my brain just shuts down when things rhyme. Which is great to tell an English teacher, I'm sure, but listen, it's always been a thing.
Yeah. Funnier because we're starting poetry tomorrow.
You should give them this book. Not actually.
So, Raven asked what happened to her hands. So while she was like getting lost in the garden, she was like trailing her hand on roses, and of course her hands are all cut up from the thorns. So he's like, what happened to your hands? And he examines each one. And then he asks her why she was on the forest road 2 weeks ago. And she just sort of realizes that he was actually the one that held the dagger to her throat as a highwayman.
Wild.
And she's like, oh shit. She hit him that night. And he is the captain of the Destroyers. So she's freaking out.
And well, she thought that night that they might have figured out that she was infected. So
yeah,
that's
so even more reason to freak out.
Yeah.
Nightmare inside her head is like, let me out, let me out, let me out. I guess he
So
wants to
beat the shit out of him again.
yeah, or like try and save her. And like she knows that she's broken the law on several counts. One by being infected and two by assaulting him. But he's not being aggressive with her.
Yeah.
He just asks again why she was on that road at that time of night. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't do that. That's not me. And he's like, I wouldn't forget your face. Like, you've got such a face.
Such a face. Fair.
So she tries to make an excuse that she needs to go. Like, oh, sorry, my family's waiting for me. I have to go. So, like, she just starts walking away further into the mist, but he just follows her. And Nightmare's in her head, and he's like, he is following you. And he reaches for her, and she starts to, like, walk/run away. And he tells her that he won't hurt her. And then she smells salt really, really strong. And it's, like, making her gasp. And she's trying to catch her breath. And then he grabs her mind and speaks into it. A deep voice tells her he's not going to hurt her. So she tries to, like, keep going. But she falls down. And she still hears Raven's voice in her head. And then he lands on top of her. And covers her mouth and tells her to be quiet. Because they'll hear them. And she's like, who the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, this random dude is lying on top of her. So, like, in my brain, he has to be the love interest, correct?
I'm not telling you anything.
I don't like this. So, they hear horses and dogs. And she's like, oh, the king and the men are back from the hunt. So, she tries to escape using Nightmare's strength to get Raven off of her, and like she kicks him, and then he just tells her if she makes another sound, they're both dead. And Nightmare tells her to listen because the king is not her friend. So like if he's trying to keep the king away from her, then she needs to listen.
Yeah.
And then he tells her again that he won't hurt her, but she counteracts that he used a nightmare card on her. And he sort of doesn't really have any recourse for that because he did. And he also, she's like, oh, you also saw my veins during the scuffle. So he knows her secret of
being infected.
Being infected and living past the fever. So he shows her his card. Oh, it's the same one as her uncle. I don't know if it's the exact same, but like same design and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he taps it 3 times to turn it off. And then she just expects him to immediately take her away.
To the dungeons.
Mm-hmm. But he tells her he has no intention of arresting her and wants to take her back to the castle to understand her gift.
Really?
Yeah. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any magic. But he's like, you're a pretty decent liar. And she's like, she then asks him, like, what did you hear in my head? Because she's worried that he would have heard Nightmare.
Yeah, fair.
And he's like, nothing, just like a clack, or like a clicking or a clacking. So, like, it's his nails.
Yeah. Can you imagine? That would drive you crazy.
He must turn it off, though. Like, I can't imagine he does it all the time. I feel like he probably does it to, like, get on people's nerves. He loves her too much to annoy her.
Yeah. I do love him too.
So she tells him that she will go back to the castle with him, but only if they can avoid the garden and the women with all their Providence cards. And Raven's like, how do you know there are Providence cards out there? And she's just like, oh shit. Like, my bad.
You could just say it was like, I'm just assuming because we're in the castle, but
yeah,
she's like, "Oh, he caught me." And it's like, I don't think he really did.
Yeah, she could have played that off.
Yeah.
So then we have the next chapter. There's the stuff on the card. A charm is neither living nor dead. When an animal born of blunder dies of age, bury it in deep soil. When the soil sprouts seed, unearth it. Take from the animal a piece no greater than a palm of your hand. Whether bone, hair, or feather, your charm is a safeguard in the mist. For the animals of blunder remain free of the spirit's snare. A charm is neither living nor dead. So she has a piece of crow. I don't know which piece.
I feel like it's a claw, but I could have just made that up in my brain.
All right, I believe you. So
a foot, whatever you call them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So essentially it's telling us, one, that these talismans are super important for them because it helps them get through the mist without going crazy. I don't remember. I think I just counted one, but I don't remember what the second thing is. Oh, it tells us how to make tells us how to make a talisman.
Yes. Smart.
So they escort, I guess he leaves it alone, but he escorts her to the basement and reassures her again that she has nothing to fear from him. So they take a bunch of twists and turns until they're finally in the room, and there's barking dogs, but they all back off as soon as he gives them the command. And he leaves, and then he comes back with two other people. His younger sister, Jesper, also a destrier that we mentioned earlier, and a physician, Philic Willow. And she's terrified of the physician because she's like, you're going to examine me and send me to the king. And he has to sort of reassure her, no, don't worry, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. This whole part, she's like, I'm about to go to the dungeon.
Yeah. So he asks her a couple questions. He asks her how old she is and when she got the infection. So she was 20 right now, and she was 9 when she got the magic, or when she didn't get the magic. And then he also says, well, what magic did it give you? And she just says, I'm just going to tell a version of the truth because I don't want to face the actual truth.
Yeah.
So she decides that she's going to try and tell a version of the truth, but leaving out some key information because she just doesn't trust them.
Fair.
So she just tells them that she can see the colors of cards even through the mist and who carries them. So the doctor asks about her degenerative condition, since all magic comes with a price, but she just tells him, I have no idea what it is, because it hasn't manifested yet. So everyone gets really excited when there's a knock at the door. And in walks Prince Renelm, and he just tells her, you can call me Elm for short. And he asks her, who she is, and she introduces herself, and they say, oh, she's Eric's daughter. And the Nightmare is really pissed, because he's just exuding power and control, and also he hates their family.
Yeah.
So she also sees that he's wearing a scythe card, and Nightmare hates Rowan's with a passion, because apparently it was a bit confusing. They used the Book of Alders to turn magic into something to fear instead of something to wonder at. And they corrupted the ancient text. So they just weren't cool with the text.
Yeah, I think, it's trying to be the people used to go to the mist and ask for gifts, and now the mist is giving, or the spirit of the wood, and ask for gifts. And now the mist is giving people gifts, but they're like, those aren't good. Get rid of all those people.
Yikes.
So, I think that's what he means, but I don't know 100% for sure.
Yeah. So we get that there are 4 scythes cards, and the Rowan family has them all.
Of course they do.
Yeah. And that when they use it, They can make someone do absolutely anything they want.
Gross.
So she introduces herself to Elm, but she uses her real name, like Elspeth, last name.
Spindle.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, so your name's not Jane Yarrow? And she's like, oh shit, he's the second highwayman that was back with them. And anyway, so she's so pissed that he was the second highwayman and like tried to rob her that she just sits back in the chair and she's like, I'm just gonna stop you right there. I'm not saying another thing while he is in the room, and especially while like both of them are in the room together. So then we get another chapter card thing. This one's long. It says, for the black horse card for power and speed, the spirit wanted blood from my warhorse, my steed. For the golden egg card, abundance and wealth, I bartered 2 years of my life's precious health. The prophet came next, the card of foresight. She wanted my fear, so I gave her my fright. When I asked her for courage, the white eagle card, I bartered my skin, which left my hands scarred. So I begged for the maiden, for beauty I prayed. She asked me for my hair, shorn off with a blade. I liked that.
Yeah.
It was nice.
I like hearing what he had to give for all of the cards.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. So everyone else leaves the room, and Raven just comes back in, and he's got shiny things in his pockets. So she thinks he's gonna test her with cards, and sure enough, he does. So he lays the eagle card on the table and asks her what the color is, and she's like, it's white. Like, dude, I'm not stupid, it's white. And then he asks if she can see the colors with her eyes closed, and she's like, yeah. So she has to wear a blindfold. He puts it on, and then he puts another card on the table. It's the black horse card. So it's the one that all destriers have. Each destrier has one of these cards. So we're gonna get into what all the cards actually do and mean. So the black horse, which I think it's going in order of 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So the most cards is the black horse card. And that makes its owner the master of combat, which is why all the destriers have one. The golden egg, so there's 11 of those, grants wealth. The prophet, there's 10, gives glimpses of the future. The white the white eagle gives courage. The maiden gives great beauty. The chalice turns any liquid into truth serum. The well allows you to see and know your enemies. The iron gate offers serenity no matter the struggle. The scythe can control others. The mirror gives invisibility. The nightmare can speak into the minds of others. And the twin alders can commune with the ancient deity, the spirit of the wood. However, there are 2 sides to every card. So if a card is used too long, they all have a specific repercussion. So the black horse card makes you weak. The egg creates all-consuming greed. The eagle's courage is replaced by fear. The prophet's foresight makes the user helpless to change the future. The chalice's truth serum turns to poison. The maiden's beauty chills the user's heart. The well's owner would be betrayed by a friend. The iron gate steals years from the owner's life. The scythe causes great physical pain. The mirror makes you see ghosts. Like, I guess it allows you, like, the sight to view the other side, I guess, and like see the ghosts all the time.
Yeah, like invisibility and seeing ghosts kind of goes hand in hand.
Hand in hand, yeah.
Yeah.
The nightmare reveals your greatest fear, but no one knows what the consequence of using the Twin Alders card is because no one has it or knows where it is.
Yeah.
So, she is like blindfolded and he is testing her. So he lays down more cards and asks her which card it is. And of course, she knows what each card is because of the colors that she can see. So obviously she gets them all correct. And he asks if she keeps any cards for herself. And I'm just like, what made you assume that just because she has the magic to see them, she has, you know what I mean? Like, she has them?
Yeah, I guess.
He's assuming that, like, she uses her magic to get cards or, like, take them.
But I wonder if she would if she was actually able to touch them.
Is she not able to touch them?
Well, she thinks that if she touches them, she's going to gain something, right?
She'll absorb a power.
Yeah, she'll absorb something from it. So that's what she's worried about. But there's no actual, like... I was like, how does she know that as a fact? Like, it happened once. That's not...
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's not a scientific study. But she assumes that if she touches another one, she will absorb something from that too. Mm-hmm. So, I guess, like, if someone's just hiding one in their attic and nobody knows about it and she saw it, she could just take it. So, you never... Like, I don't know. Maybe?
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, he does ask her that, and she doesn't really answer. But just her mannerisms and the way she behaves doesn't really seem like she approves of the cards. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't really like that they're in use at all.
Yeah.
So...
I think there's some fear of them, too. And then there's also whatever the nightmare feels about them.
Yeah. Then he asks her who knows about her infection, and again, she doesn't really answer. Because, like, valid point, she just met this guy. She's not going to tell him all her secrets.
And he's the captain of the ones who would kill her.
Yeah. She does ask, though, like, why he hasn't arrested her yet, even though she's broken several laws. Mm-hmm. And he tells her he doesn't see it that way. Plus, he says that her ability is useful.
Yeah, that's really the answer.
Yeah. So, this is sort of one of the reasons why I'm like, maybe he's not the love interest. Like, I go back and forth between he is and then he's not because, like, it just, I don't know.
It gets even more confusing before it gets figured out.
Amazing. So, they do a couple more. He tests her on pretty much almost every card.
Yeah. One thing eventually. I will point out that, like, I just don't think you really... I don't think you mentioned it, and if you did, you can tell me. But she does say that, like, for a second while he's holding them, some of them are black, and she can't see the aura, and she's like, maybe I'm just tired. She's like, there's something weird about when he touches them.
Yeah, because she does say that, like, when he has them, like, when he has his hand in his pocket, things get really muddly, and, like, like, there's something going on when he touches a card.
Yeah.
So they do a couple more, and then I don't know if it's the last one he puts on the table, but he puts one on the table, and she can't see anything with it, and he's like, no, she was like, there's no card there, and he was like, no, there is, and she's like, there's not, he's like, no, there is, so she takes off her blindfold, and it's the Twin Alders card. But she's like, that's a fake. And he's like, why do you say that? And she's like, there's no color, so it's not a real card. He asks then who else knows about her abilities, and she actually does answer this question and says nobody. She agrees, before he even offers, like, she just says, I'll help you find the cards, but leave my family alone. And he's like, whoa, like, I didn't actually offer yet.
Yeah.
But she just says, leave my family alone. They don't know anything about my abilities. They only know that I survived the fever. And then he says, like, my uncle doesn't have any cards that you don't already have. And I'm like, technically, the royal family now has all the cards but one, don't they?
Yes. But I guess that's the point. Because, yeah, they were only missing 2 cards. But she's like, her uncle doesn't have any cards that... Because she thinks that they're working for the king. Like, she thinks they're looking for the cards for the king. So she's like, yeah. Fair.
So then Nightmare speaks into her head that Raven would give anything to have her magic. So she should ask for something else, something extravagant. So she asks him to promise he will never use the Nightmare card on her again. And I keep thinking back to, like, Saris and Fisher and her being, like, hating when he tells her when he used to order her to do something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is this she doesn't want to give up her, like, free will sort of a thing? Or is it she doesn't want him to find out about Nightmare in her head?
I think it's about the nightmare in her head. But it could be, I don't know, because if they're, like, I just don't really understand the nightmare card 100%. Because I know it, like, you can talk into somebody's head, but I don't know if
they
you
have
just
the power
hear
of
anything, or if, like, you can just sit in somebody's head and listen to them think. Because it seems like it's just you can talk to somebody else in their head.
But, like, if he heard the clicking, then he would probably be able to hear Nightmare if Nightmare was speaking.
Yeah, if he spoke back to him, he could hear him. Or if he was speaking to her when he entered, I guess he'd hear him. So it's just kind of like, I just don't know, can you just sit in somebody's head and listen to their thoughts? I don't really know if that's part of it. Because all I've really seen it for is for him to talk into somebody's head.
Right.
Not sure.
So we get the next chapter. So the riddle or saying or whatever. It says, there must be touch, there must be intention. Tap a provenance card thrice to command its magic. Tap it thrice more, and its magic will cease. Guard it in your cloak, your house. But be wary. Magic knows no loyalty. Should someone else touch the card, its magic shall be theirs to command. There must be touch, there must be intention. So...
Interesting.
I mean, I guess it's just like anybody could use and have a card. It doesn't really matter, like, who has it beforehand.
Yeah. But it's also like, I guess, if you tap your card and then leave it somewhere and you're using the effects, then somebody else could come tap it and you would lose them.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of how I took it. I'm not 100% sure that that's true. I don't even know if it happens, but...
Okay.
It's interesting thought.
Yeah. So... I guess they clue up. Her and Raven part ways. It's actually soon time for dinner. So she was down there in that like basement for hours. Mm-hmm. So she knows that he doesn't trust her after she asked him not to look in her mind. But she says here it's because she's hiding Nightmare. So she goes back to her room. She talks to her sisters while they all get ready for dinner. And Elspeth tells them that Ione was given a maiden card, and they are all shocked, and they wonder how, I guess, the family could afford that. But Miriam assumes that he traded something of great value. So I'm like, did they not know he had the Nightmare card?
I doubt they knew, because even his family didn't know. Only Elspeth knew until he was like, huzzah, this is our taxes.
Right. And then, so Miriam was like, either he traded something of great value or he borrowed the money.
Wild to borrow money.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So they go down to dinner, and like it's a very like old school sort of dinner. They have to be introduced as a family. Prince Elm, the guy from earlier that was the second highwayman, and she was like, I'm not talking to you. Although I'm surprised that she seemed more angry when he showed up rather than, like, she was like, I'm not talking to you when she saw him. she wasn't like that when she found out that Raven was the one who held the dagger to her.
Yeah, I wonder, we kind of mentioned this earlier, but I wonder if it's like the nightmare's like seeping his emotions about the Rowans and like, because he's a prince, if she's like, I hate him.
Could be.
Because it feels like there's a bit of that.
Yeah, okay.
She just hates the princes and king.
So Prince Elm welcomes them and asks after Elspeth and like has to try and pretend like he is just meeting her for the first time in years, because she hasn't been to court in a really long time. And he asks if he can escort her to dinner. And the nightmare speaks into her head and tells her to be wary that Rowans cling to their scythe cards too tight.
Yeah, and she's also like feeling super awkward with her family because she's like, I don't belong with them.
Yeah, 100%.
It is weird. She doesn't.
Yeah. So Elm, we learn, is 2 years older than Elspeth. And then he tells her as they're walking that she must be special for Raven to let her into his confidence, since Raven is convinced that she is to be trusted and her magic will help them. So he doesn't seem as convinced.
Yeah, he's not as trusting.
The older brother, Hoth, comes over then and asks to be introduced to Elspeth. And she knows he's a brute and like forces others to do his bidding with his card and uses it as punishment. So he actually like forces those without a charm to walk into the woods as a form of execution. And it's like really cruel and barbaric. Mm-hmm. But he is very intrigued by her, kisses her hand and like, you know, calls her beautiful or whatever. And it's like, oh, you're so lovely. And kisses her hand before Elm steers her away. He leaves her alone for a minute to grab some more wine. And then she finds her aunt, who is upset. Elspeth asks where Ione is because she wants to like make up from their argument earlier, and the aunt tells her that her uncle made a deal with the king without consulting her, and we're like concerning Ione, I guess, but she's distracted by her other children like being foolish, so goes to deal with it and doesn't tell Elspeth what the deal was.
Yeah.
So then the Alex kid that Elspeth doesn't really like approaches her and invites her to sit with his family. So you can really tell he's trying to court her. And then he says, I already have your dad's consent to come sit with us. Mm-hmm. So like, this is a big deal. And like, she's about to decline because she's like, oh, you have my dad's consent, but you don't have my consent. Like, she's a little bit like put off about it.
Great line. Love it.
Yeah. When Raven approaches and makes pleasantries, and her and Raven are like exchanging like fun barbs and sort of being sarcastic with each other. And Alex is sort of just like standing there awkwardly. And then like she obviously doesn't want to sit with them. It sort of reminds me of like an Elizabeth Bennet situation with Mr. Collins and like her trying to come up with an excuse as to why she can't sit with him. So she tells Alex that she can't sit with him because she promised the Hughes, aka Raven, that she would sit with them. And Alex just reminds her that he has her father's permission, but she actually says to him at that point, but you don't have mine.
A+.
Yeah, A++. Yeah. So then she walks away with Raven, and he brings her to his family table. And he is also like, ugh, you wanted to sit, like, you were going to sit with him? Like, he's judgy. He doesn't think she should be associating with this Alex fellow. So he brings her to his family table, and she's like, oh, is Emery the ass, like, gonna be here? But he says no, like, Emery is indisposed and won't be in attendance. So they all rise for the entrance of the king and Prince Hoth. And Hoth makes a speech about how important it is to stick together and how it has been his father's goal to collect all 12 cards. And as his heir, it is Hoth's job to continue down that path laid out in the old Book of Alders, which obviously makes Nightmare hiss in her head. And he just sort of like expands on that and says that they think that if they collect all 12 cards, they can banish the mist and the spirit of the wood, ridding Blunder of infection. He then says that they are one step closer thanks to Turn Hawthorne, who is Elspeth's uncle, and says his father has actually knighted him, and they have offered his daughter a place in the royal family. So then a beautiful woman walks out with the nightmare card and gives it to Hoth, and he introduces her as his future wife, Ione Hawthorne. Dun dun dun!
Amazing. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. So it's obviously like a beautiful woman, so not immediately recognizable by Elspeth, which is concerning because that means that she has used the maiden card.
Yeah.
But like, so is this a constant, I wonder? So like, in order, and you probably know about it, and I know you said that there's some other stuff about the maiden card that we don't know yet. But like, I know for a lot of the cards, you turn it on with 3 taps, and then you turn it off. Because this is a physical, like, alteration, do you turn it on, and in order to stay that beautiful, you have to keep it on?
Yeah.
Or, so like...
Sorry.
You already know the answer.
Yeah.
So, like, does that mean that she's just gonna have it on when she's in public all the time? Like...
These are the questions we're asking ourselves. But, like, if she taps the card 3 times again, she'll go back to her normal self.
Right, but then, like, people would be like, who are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I guess it's different in this world because, like, there's 8 of these maiden cards. So people are changing their appearances all the time. It's not unusual, I wouldn't think, for a queen, a princess, somebody who is not a man, of course, to just change their appearance to look beautiful because fuck, we do that in our world.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, I think people would just understand that, yeah, she's... And I assume it's not like such a wild transformation that you don't recognize any part of her.
Right.
But I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, cliffhanger.
Love it.
And exactly what Elspeth didn't want her to do.
Yes, yeah.
Like, she was like, Elspeth doesn't want me to be engaged to a king, to use a card, to do this. I'm going to tick, 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 tick.
I'm gonna do all those things.
Yeah. So yeah, that wraps it up for us this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week, we will be reading chapters 10 to 18 of One Dark Window. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.